Hello my beautiful YouTube friends. Today I bring you a review over A Bride Most Begrudging by Deeanne. The story is set in 1643 following Lady Constance Morrow. She is snuck away from her father and servants, not telling them where she was going, to say goodbye to her Uncle Scully, who is on a prisoner ship bound for the Americas. During her time of saying goodbye, her Uncle Scully makes her aware of the fact that the captain and his crew are not the most honest of men, and that it was not a very smart idea to come alone and not to tell anyone where she was going. When Constance goes to leave, she realizes this is true when the captain and one of his crewmen force her below deck with the female prisoners to be sold as tobacco brides when they make it to the Americas. 2 months later, there's been a lot of sickness, which is due in part to malnutrition on the prisoners' side of things, and death, one of which including the Uncle Scully that I mentioned earlier. Now, Constance is placed on the main deck away from the female brides because the captain is hoping to fetch a higher price of tobacco for her. Now we're introduced to a gentleman named Emmett who decides he's going to purchase Constance as his bride. He is given a receipt for the body, told to load his tobacco onto the ship, and to retrieve her before the next day. Constance is then placed below deck again, waiting to be retrieved, hoping it doesn't happen. It's the middle of the night when she is the last one on the ship, basically, when she is finally retrieved. When she makes it to the main deck, though, it's not this gentleman Emmett who is holding the receipt for her. It's actually a gentleman named Drew O'Connor, who'd been there earlier that day, not only to buy some indentured servants, but also purchased another one of the women who was being sold as a bride. Now, this is where I'm going to stop the synopsis, because everything starts to unfold from there. I really enjoyed the writing of this. It is a historical novel, and the author does make apologies at the end for any historical inaccuracies she may have written, but I enjoyed it, and I didn't seem to find any historical inaccuracies. But I'm not a historian, so I don't really know for sure. It's just from my own personal thought. The author does a really good job making sure you know this was a very hard time. It was very bittersweet. There were happy times, but there were a lot of sad times. The Americas, specifically the Virginia colony, was still being colonized, so you had problems with the Native Americans who were still trying to find the balance between what was going on with the colonies. We also had the different vaccinations that weren't made then, so people died from different diseases that they would catch. We also had the fact that there wasn't a lot of modern conveniences like we have nowadays. You can't just go into a store and say, I want to buy a house. You had to make it. If you wanted furniture, you had to have it shipped over from England, i.e. why we have to ship things, or you had to make it yourself. And on top of that, you also had to kind of know the basic necessities, what you could and couldn't use cooking-wise. Because Constance had servants, she didn't really know a lot of that. On top of it, you didn't have the modern necessity of washrooms, so that plays out a little bit humorously. Now, the story is told from Lady Constance's point of view, but we also have parts that are told from Drew's point of view, which I thought was really great. The banter between them was just really sweet, and it was facepalm moments. I really enjoyed the fact that we also got a couple paragraphs that are from Drew's younger brother's point of view. I can't remember his name right now, but he kind of comes into a different part of the story, and I thought that was really sweet. The author does a really good job of making sure that you don't just have and they all lived happily ever after, because that wasn't how this actually worked. There were harsh times, and there were very bittersweet times, and I thought the author did a really good job taking something that was very bittersweet for the characters, and then in the next paragraph or the next few pages, she could then change it into something humorous, and she could balance that off very well. The pacing of the story was amazing as well. We had certain passages that went a little slower because of what she was talking about, and then other times there was some intense scene taking place, and the pacing would speed up to suit that, and it was absolutely amazing. One thing I do want to state, though, is the fact that I personally am not mathematically inclined whatsoever. I can do it, but it's not my favorite. And I love the fact that she took our main character and had her enjoy numbers and mathematical problems and kind of interwove that into the courting between Drew and Constance. Now, this was the author's debut novel, and it was extremely well written. The author not only included an apology for any of the historical inaccuracies she might have written, but she also included a statement stating that a journal that is written into this story was actually a real journal that was published. I'm not going to tell you what journal it is because it'll come up later on in the story, and it's a bit of a key piece of information with this story. Anyway, it was actually published during that time, but it was not one of the characters in this story that was doing it. It was another person in real life, but she took the journal and she put it into a fictional character publishing it. So I thought that was key that she included that as well, and it was just overall magnificently written. I really enjoyed this historical fiction. It was very well done, and if you guys have read it, let me know down below what you thought of it. We can discuss it, and if not, I hope that you guys will give this book a chance. It was very well done. I will see you in my next video. Until then, go and pick up a random book and read. Bye guys.